Welcome, everyone. So, the goal is to talk about. Oh, sorry. Sorry for the excess volume. This is horrible. Sometimes I overdo it. So, we're going to talk about history today. And as you can understand, history is one of my favorite topics. So, you might have learned that through just the, um, the name of my YouTube channel. Anyway, let's go on. So, my name is Miguel, and I like to talk about history. So, let's start. History is a very complicated topic, but only if you don't know how to understand it. So, ultimately, the guide to history is to read a lot about history and connect the time periods. Why did this happen now? Why this will happen in the future? History is the key to all of that. Um, The reason why I didn't make this a child accessible video is because it includes information about um, less understandable things to a child. So I don't want to make it the YouTube Kids video. Now let's go to the juicy part. About this video, history, like I said, is only a complicated topic if you don't understand it. But now let's start understanding history. One of the greatest historians in history was Herodotus, aka Herodotu in Greek. So it is the same name, just different languages. So what he did was he was considered kind of a heretic by his fellow Greeks, like a pro-barbarian would. uh, he is considered the kind of pro-barbarian and sometimes anti-Athenian, sometimes pro-Athenian because of the style he writes in. Because he saw good things in the barbarians, aka non-Greeks, as well as he saw it in the Greeks, and he wanted to tell the story as he saw it, not just through his biases or anything. And so he tried to learn as much as possible about history, and that's why he's considered one of the fathers of history. Another great Greek writer of that time, like before Christ, especially around the classical era or archaic era, was Thucydides. Thucydides. Thucydides was one of the greatest historians, and he was considered by a German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, to be a great historian and a cure for many problems we have today. He was specifically considered the cure for Platonism, for the ideas of Plato. I'm not going to go further into that because that specific topic I don't understand much about it, as I haven't read Plato, the Respublica, aka Politia. But I know that Plato was oftentimes a very exaggerated human being. He had a lot of good ideas and a lot of good theories, and he was an awesome writer. But there's limits to his qualities that are normal in any healthy human being. And even in the most skilled people, you can still find limits. So it's normal that even a great writer like him would have his flaws. For now, we're not having many. For now, I'm pleased with the amount of visualizations I'm receiving. The amount of sites to my channel is pleasing for such a young YouTube channel in terms of video activity. So what I can tell more about this is that Greek historiology was very complete, and it focused a lot on several important works like historias, histories by Herodotus. There's also Xenophon's works, which are also amazing, but I haven't read. I think I have started reading Thucydides, but it will take me a long time because for now I'm focusing on the Iliad, so it will take some time. Anyway, Basically, there's a lot of important historiology throughout all civilizations, all important civilizations in human history. You have it in India, you have it in Persia, aka modern Iran. But then again, Iran was always a name associated with Persia and the Iranian Empire or empires, depending on what you're thinking of, because there was the Persian Empire, then there was the Parthian Empire, and there was the Sassanid Empire. But the Sassanid was also Persian Empire, as it used Middle Persian as a language, which is cool. Middle Persian is basically a stage of the Persian language, aka Farsi, but older and much more conservative as a language. So it was also cooler, in my opinion, because I love conservative languages. But I also really like like the Farsi language today. It has a unique style to it. I don't know much about it because I don't have enough time to solely focus on it. But I know that Mar means snake, which is interesting. And I have tried to learn how to write a bit in it, but not any not to a deep amount. Sorry, my computer had a low battery. Not to a deep amount, but now the computer is good. But basically, the Farsi language is an amazing historical language, and it should be studied more, I think. I'll be honest, I prefer the Greek and Latin and the Old Norse languages, and of course, modern Icelandic and modern Greek, and my own language, Portuguese, specifically more from Portugal than from Brazil, but I also like the sonority of Brazilian Portuguese, at least to a degree. Uh, so, yeah, it should be learned more, but and it is quite unique. Now let's go back to history. Because I like languages and history, I'll say a few facts about uh, languages and history every now and then, even in mostly video focused on history, or even in a video mostly focused about languages. Well, heck, even if I do videos about biology, as I am a biologist student, I don't mind also telling you about history and about languages because everything is connected, really. Now that we're talking again about history, why not tell you about the old idea of 7 areas of knowledge that the medieval English people had? I really subscribe to that idea because there were 7 areas of real knowledge, and all of these were interrelated to a degree. And I think that is true because there are 7 real interpretations of knowledge. Knowledge is so deep that it exists in all of these areas, and these together make knowledge its own thing. Knowledge is such an important attribute to have, such an important abstract thought that without it we wouldn't really function as human beings, and that's what I consider to be important. So now let's go back to history. Sorry, guys. I'm constantly, we say in Portuguese, divagar, like getting out of the topic, finding vague ideas, things like that. But obviously, because I like to, but also there's a reason for that. I really like to compare different topics and different ideas. Otherwise, it's not so interesting to even exist. Like if we just focus on one topic all our lives and don't branch out even slightly, then it's not as interesting because by finding these shared areas within an area or shared branches between different areas, We make life more interesting, and we get to learn a lot more than what we would learn before. And that is why I like to associate different topics. But speaking of different topics, that's one of the reasons why history works the way it works. So there's different time periods, as you know. Before, in one of my videos, I talked about different time periods in Greece. You have the Mycenaean, you have the Archaic, you have the Classical, you have the Roman, you have the Eastern Roman period, you have the Turkish period, and you have the Greek freedom period. All of these periods are very important as they influenced the Greek language deeply. There's still a few, even now with freedom in Greece, there's still a certain amount of Turkish words in the Greek language, which change it slightly. It's still in a Hellenic language, clearly, and it's still the Greek language, but it's not as impressive as it was before. I love the Greek language. I love the Greek people. Please don't contest that. But we have to be honest here. Many Greeks say they're not as impressive as the ancient Greeks. And the first step to becoming like the ancient Greeks in terms of quality is to admit that. I admit that modern Portuguese people are not as impressive as the discoveries period Portuguese people that sailed the world and brought our form of civilization to everyone else, willing or not. Now, I, I'm not someone that really wants to conquer everything or whatever. No, that's not the case. What I just want to say is that in our own style, we do impressive things. However, compared to our ancestors that went doing all of these crazy adventures, we are not as significant. We have to learn how to find real challenges in our modern times to improve ourselves so that we can even try to compare ourselves with our amazing ancestors, both the Greeks and the Portuguese. And that way, we will earn their respect, their true respect. So, how does history even relate to this? Well, the things that happened in history led us to to these circumstances. So, when we talk about the destruction of Constantinople and the rebuilding by the Turks, we are talking about the basis that would lead to other events. The fact that the Greeks lost against the Turks meant that Europe had no longer a tampon, a protection against foreign forces. The the fact that the Russians lost the civil war against the communists meant that Europe would be affected by the Bolsheviks and the Stalinists in the end. The fact that the Goths, and the Iberian compatriots lost against the Moors and other forces that I'm not going to name, but you might know if you have studied history, would then lead to our future. Now, if you do a genetic composition about on an average Iberian, average, not all, there's 10% Moorish, 20% something else that I'm not going to name, and 60 to 70% Iberian, and sometimes Gothic, Roman, sometimes maybe Greek as well. I don't know how common Greek is in the Iberian Peninsula, but you can find some genetics of that. So yeah, there's a bit of Moorish there and a bit of Iberian, the native Iberian, one of the most ancient populations in Europe. So when they call us Moors, ignore them. We're not Moors. We are related to them slightly. That's the difference. And understand, sure, the Arabs were always were here at some point, and there's Moorish presence here for around 4,500 years, because the Moors came here before the Moorish Islamic period as well, because we're very close to North Africa. But they were never the true majority. And even if they were at some point the majority, the Reconquista, the reconquest, the return to form of Iberia was settled eventually. Now, it doesn't mean that I dislike the Arabs or the Moors or whatever. In fact, I'll be. In fact, I kind of I have met some people from Tunisia, from some people from Algeria, and they're amazing people as well. So the thing is, we all want our freedom, and the Moorish period was a loss of freedom for the indigenous Iberians. And so that last loss of freedom is marked in our genetics, 10% Moorish. And whether we like it or not, it happened. So, and there's that relation. The fact that they won means that we now are partially Moorish. Of course, we are Europeans. We are Europeans. But compared to the Icelanders, we have 10% Moorish. They have none. So it goes to show that history has its own effects. So when you look at history and you look at different time periods, do not be afraid to compare them. What did the fact that the Americans went on sailing boats and finding colonies and making territories and the American Empire? And I'm not talking about recently. I'm talking about Perry's time, like 1853, I think, the Black Ships of America. What did it do to Japan? It changed it completely. It created the Meiji period. And ultimately, it would help contribute to the time we are in right now. Japan was literally forced to open its gates to outsiders. And the society that exists in Japan, that exists today, is in part because of this event. And this and you know why Japanese society is so thoroughly Japanese? Because the Japanese people are some of the most resistant, hardworking, and truly based, as many people in the internet would say, populations here in this world. I consider the Japanese to be kind of the Germans of Asia. They're hardworking and dedicated to their work in a thorough level, not just hardworking. I work 12 hours a day. No, no, it's not just that. The focus they employ in their hard work. It's this combination of power characteristics that truly contribute to their success. I'm going to end the stream soon, but still not yet. Still not yet. Let's write a bit about here. So, history is easy, but history has to be studied deeply to be understood. Now, a quote that I will make by myself, but is also influenced by other quotes. The problem of humanity is that we don't learn from history. Or another one. We learn from history, but we learn how to forget history. And now we say a lot of stupid things, like, for example, history is not as important. History is a humanities subject. No, it's not. History is a humanities subject, but everyone that wants to be successful a human being should aspire to learn at least a bit of history. Because if we learn a bit more history, we will become more successful. We can more or less predict what will happen in the future just by looking about the events that happen relating to modern situations and the ones that happened in the past and relate them to modern situations. And we will probably get a more or less clear idea of what is going to happen. Not exactly what is going to happen, but we get an idea more or less of what is going to happen. We might be a bit wrong, we might be a bit right, but guess what? We can more or less predict that something horrible might happen. For example, the recent earthquake in Turkey. All my condolences go to the Turks and to the Syrians and to everyone else seriously affected by this horrible earthquake. I mean, it went to the Sami, it went to the land of the Sami, to northern Scandinavia, Samiland. Like that's ridiculously long. I mean, it's not as long as many other distances, but it's still in the European context and European with into correlation with the Middle East. It's still very far away. By the way, one thing it's clear: Anatolia, specifically Turkey nowadays, it's not a Middle Eastern region. Currently, it is actually a hybrid of several civilizations, but mostly a Turkic one, mostly Ottoman influenced. So the Turkish nation, Turkiye, or Turkey. I'm not. Please correct me in the comments if you make anyone about the better pronunciation, because I'm interested in everything as much as long as it is interesting truly to me. It is a hybrid of European, Central Asian, and Middle Eastern culture. In fact, the Ottomans were, in the beginning, deeply influenced by Persian civilization. And of course, Islamic slash Arabic civilization. But but what I'm talking about is influences, not genetic, not real national influences like you can say, oh, they're part Arab. No, 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 no. I'm not saying that. Turks are nothing like Arabs. The only thing they have in common is that they live uh, closely and that they're Muslims, most of them. Well, now that I think that is all for today's video, for today's stream, and see you later.